If you're having some issues with your hamstrings, these are 5 things that I recommend taking a look at right now. Number 1, the most low-hanging fruit to hamstring health is to actually learn how to lengthen your hamstrings. Sounds kind of obvious, right? But this is how we put the hamstrings on stretch, and it all has to do with the pelvis and the spine. Now, most people do something like this and run into a block on their backside, and they wonder, why can't I ever gain any flexibility in my hamstrings? What you need to learn to do is a straight leg hinge. The key here is to keep your lower back arched and your pelvis tilted forward. Now you'll bring your chest down while moving the hips backwards. If you place your hands on the back of your legs, you'll actually feel the hamstrings lengthening. Now, if you're tight, you're gonna run into 2 things. Number 1 is that your spine's gonna wanna start rounding and get out of that arched position. If you start to feel that, you've gone too far. Number 2 is your knees are gonna wanna bend. Do your best to straighten them, and that'll make for a better stretch. Both of these things mean that you'll probably have to work in a smaller range of motion. That's fine. For a lot of people, just learning this step right here can fix a lot of hamstring discomfort. And when you feel competent here, you can move into a single leg variation, which will make this stretch more intense. It's very easy to do. All you have to do is stagger your stance and you'll be stretching that front leg. Now, one of the reasons why this stretch is so powerful is because you're using your body weight against gravity to load this stretch, which makes you also have to use strength here as well. If you lay down on your back and pull your leg up, like you'll see some people do, it's not to say this is a bad stretch, but there's none of that load from your body weight involved, so the stretch will be a lot less potent. And one way that you can always make it more potent is to add in a little bit of extra weight. If you're really stiff and having hard breaking through, this can be a good option for you. Step 2, stiff and tight hamstrings does not necessarily mean that they're strong. Most people these days are hip to deadlifts being really good for them. It strengthens your whole backside, including your hamstrings. But the other thing that the hamstrings do is they bend your knee. Most people aren't strengthening this range of motion. Now, you may see some strong dudes on social media doing Nordic curls, which is a huge expression of strength through bending that knee. But this is not necessary for you to do if you just want to get healthy and work through pain. Instead, you can start as simple as just lifting your heel towards your butt. Put your hand on your hamstring. Can you feel it contract? You may even get a cramp because your body isn't used to this contraction. Now, once you feel comfortable with the mind-muscle connection here, I recommend doing heel slides. Socks on a hard floor works best for this. You want to keep your hips high and then slide your heels towards your butt, and then reverse the motion without letting those hips drop. For the next step in progression, you'll do the hamstring curls with your feet in a suspension trainer or rings. This will be slightly more intense, but I recommend that everyone work up to this step and get strong here. Strengthening knee flexion also has the added benefit of making your knees feel really strong as well. I want to thank LMNT for sponsoring this video. I've personally been using LMNT Electrolytes for over a year now, and some of the reasons that I like to use electrolytes are because I work out, I sweat more than the average person, I drink coffee, sometimes I do intermittent fasting. These are all reasons to replenish electrolytes in your body. Now, drinking a good amount of water is obviously very important for staying hydrated, but are you absorbing that water? And this is key. Now, I've tried a bunch of other electrolyte mixes. Most of them have crazy additives in them. A lot of them don't have very high amounts of those minerals that you want. And some of them, they just don't taste good. For me, LMNT checks all those boxes. I was recently just down in Mexico where it was hot and humid, and I made sure to take some LMNT along with me. I was having a packet a day, and I felt like it was the main thing that was keeping me energized, even though I was out in the heat getting sunburnt and sweating all day long. So right now, LMNT is offering the Strength Side community a free sample pack with the purchase of any electrolytes, so you guys can try out flavors and see which one vibes with you. All you have to do is use our special link in the description. It's really cool to believe in a product and for them want to help us out by giving us a sponsorship. So big up to LMNT. Back to the video. Step 3 is the hip flexors actually play a huge role in hamstring health. Just like if I squeeze my bicep, the backside tricep will lengthen. The same goes for when I squeeze my hip flexors, the hamstrings will lengthen. This is the pulling effect. When you let your torso come down to the ground, you're not just falling, but you can actually pull yourself into that position with your hip flexors. Oftentimes we think that the hip flexors just need to be stretched because we sit so much, but they need to be strong as well. Two quick and easy ways to work on straight leg hip flexor strength is the front kick, standing, using your hands for assistance, lifting one knee, and then making sure to get that knee all the way straight. And the other is a seated pike lift. Simply sitting down with your legs out in front of you, placing your hands on the ground, and then trying your hardest to lift the legs up. For both of these, you want to really think about squeezing the full front chain of the body. And if you look at something like an L-sit, this is a more advanced expression of that straight leg hip flexor strength. Step 4 is folding. It's important to first learn how to hinge forward and lengthen the hamstrings. But some people need some extra load in folding to break through some of that hamstring stiffness. This is where Jefferson curls or forward folds come into play. This is not a hip hinge, this is spinal flexion. This is also really great for lengthening your back muscles as well. You really only need a light weight to start, something that will assist you in pulling yourself deeper. And really that's the point of this stretch, is that we can add some load here to get us deeper into that compressed position. Lastly, number 5, sometimes what feels like hamstring discomfort is actually stiff hip joints. Your hips need to be able to rotate, open and close. So if you've put a lot of time into these first 4 and you're still having some hamstring discomfort, I recommend checking out, what does your hip external rotation look like? What does your internal rotation look like? Can you get into a pigeon-like position comfortably? Can you sit 90-90 position on the ground? If not, you may need to open up and strengthen these ranges of motion to get your hips to move more freely. When you unstuck the hips, the hamstrings just seem to improve as well. So there's one more problem with the hamstrings that I almost forgot to put in this video, and that's why this clip looks different. And that's calf tightness. A lot of people report that when they stretch their hamstrings, they feel a lot of tightness and stiffness right behind the knee. Now, when the back of the knee feels tight, it's most likely a combination of your hamstrings and your calves being stiff, because both of those muscles cross the knee joint. So there's a lot of things converging right there. And the whole chain works together. It's unlikely that you're gonna have super flexible hamstrings and really, really tight calves, or vice versa. So first off, make sure that you're doing some dedicated calf stretching. But to go after both at the same time, a very easy entry-level stretch is the downward dog. But even better, if we wanna emphasize the calf stretch, is to alternate between lifting one heel and pressing the other heel down. This will intensify the stretch through the calf in that heel that's on the ground. And if you can't even get your heels to the ground, it's something to work on, and you can pretty much be sure that that whole back chain is pretty tight. Now, for a little bit more of an intense stretch, we can do our forward fold that we talked about earlier with our toes elevated on something. This variation is fantastic, and you will feel those calves be put on even more stretch while also going after the hammies. For me personally, I used to experience this tightness in the back of the knee. What I found was that I actually didn't have the control to lock my knee out when bending forward. What really helped clear it up for me is the basic hip hinges that we talked about earlier in the video, and really just staring at my knee and making sure that it stayed straight and not unlocking. Sometimes you think your knee is straight, but really there's a slight bend in it. Be super conscious and intentional about it. I hope that addressing one or all of these issues can help you work through some of that hamstring tightness or pain. Remember that it takes time, don't rush it, just do the right things. So out of these 5 steps, have you identified a weakness that you want to work on? Let us know in a comment below. If you're looking for a program that will help improve your full body flexibility, including those hamstrings, along with body weight, strength, and movement, check out our 90-day program, Move Strong Now, first link in description. Guys, this has been awesome. Like the video, subscribe to StrengthSide.